Since the last round of Haagen-Schmidt Awards, the atmospheric science and policy community has lost one of its towering figures, Professor Martin Williams. A man who began his professional career with distinguished contributions on the formation and dispersion of tropospheric ozone, a field that Haagen-Schmidt has made his own. It is not possible for Professor Williams to be considered as a candidate for an official Haagen-Schmidt Award due to his sudden and unexpected death just before the nomination process for this year's award. I will say they deliberated on this in terms of how do you recognize someone who is deceased. But in this case, unexpected death, Martin would obviously have been a nominee head, so would have come up, and we all knew him there. However, because he had such outstanding credentials, it was decided by the chair, and that is Madam Chair, to give Professor Martin Williams this special recognition. He leaves an enormous legacy to air quality science and policy, and it's important that this should not pass unrecognized. We would therefore like to take a few moments to recall the man, his achievements, and his legacy. And some of these you may be familiar with. I was not some of them, and so it's really important to put this in context. And I think you would recognize that he rises to the caliber of deserving this mention. Two factors especially distinguished Professor Williams's work. First, he's a preeminent at the critical interface between science and policy. Second, he was one of the first truly international figures in our field. Originally motivated by the impact of pollution in the Welsh mining valleys where he grew up, and we share Welsh heritage there, he contributed significantly to the work of some of our key institutions, including the US EPA, Health Effects Institute, and the International Council on Clean Transportation. He also became a leading figure in air pollution policy in the European Union and across the Northern Hemisphere, through his long leadership at the Conventions for Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, and increasingly at the global scale through his contributions to the World Health Organization's work. A few examples may serve to highlight the scale of Professor Williams' contribution to air quality. Early in his career, he led the group that produced the first real-world measurements of emissions from vehicles, work on which the automaker Dieselgate data was to build upon some 20 years later. He then played a leading role in European vehicle emission reduction negotiations, working closely with US partners. I'm sure he worked with Jürgen and Axel in some of those areas. As head of the air quality science team for the UK government, he was responsible for another landmark, providing the scientific underpinning for a comprehensive national air quality strategy to integrate policy across the UK government and across the full range of pollutants in developing the underlying science. That was at the time when UK was operating independent of the European Union, and so maybe it was easier to get some stuff through at that time. He had few precedents on which to draw, so he managed to develop important new approaches which are now common practice. Most notably, he developed effective assessment and modeling tools that could show the comparative benefits of alternative policy options for reducing ambient pollution levels and health effects. With difficult choices between alternative policies becoming unavoidable, this work was invaluable. This work set the direction for the emerging air quality standards in the European Union, helping provide scientific basis for legislation on air quality guidelines and the establishment of the first enforceable air quality limit values for particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, and other key pollutants. At the time when some of the member states were uncertain about following these new air quality public health mandates, Professor Williams' steady voice and first-hand experience implementing change at the national level helped the EU automakers make this important step. Over the years, the guidelines have significantly reduced air pollution across Europe. In 2015, he went on to co-chair the WHO Workshop, a group which oversaw the formulation of the new air quality guidelines that were released by the World Health Organization last year, sadly, shortly after his untimely death. These guidelines will now play a secondary role in guiding countries around the world as they develop action toward cleaner air. As the importance of his work increased, Professor Williams had become someone who not only understood the science, but also someone who could help manage and deliver change. These skills became increasingly visible in two final areas of achievement that require mention. For a decade, Professor Williams led the UNECE Convention on Long-Range Transport of Air Pollution, the premier international body on air pollution, never an easy task with a diverse membership embracing North America, Europe, and Russia. His initial contribution was to help develop the second sulfur protocol, the first fully science-based international atmospheric policy agreement. Later, as chair, he successfully negotiated 3 further international agreements, culminating in the review of the multi-pollutant Gothenburg Protocol. To the challenging task of leading the convention, he brought perception, humor, and a well-honed understanding of what was and was not realistically achievable. Finally, Professor Williams was among the first to recognize the importance of early action on short-lived climate pollutants for mitigating climate change and reducing global air pollution. He contributed to this cause in numerous ways, including by contributing critically to the Stockholm Conference that brought the issue to prominence, definitely chairing the conference that convened to explore the policy implications. He was also a lead contributor on policy issues for the WMO UNEP report that set the course on short-lived climate pollutant policy for the following decade. He stayed a key figure until the work on the short-lived climate pollutant policy had gathered its own momentum with the commitment of the United States and the launch of the CCAC, that is the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. So we're joined here with the climate and the air pollution through the short-lived pollutants. And I know firsthand, having participated in a conference with Martin in London, that he really played an invaluable role. Across all these fields, Professor Martin Williams was a towering figure, as the Hagensmith Awards are designed to recognize. He leaves an enduring legacy for the generation of atmospheric scientists and policymakers to follow him. Thank you.